What's up, guys? It's Tuesday, the day after Georgia has finally gotten it done and slayed Goliath, has taken down Nick Saban and Alabama to win their first national championship in over 40 years in college football. Great day for Athens, bad day for everybody else in college football. We'll get into that in a bit. Also, we'll talk a little NFL. The playoffs start this week. We'll talk seeding. Um, and who I think matches up well, and my picks for the Super Bowl. But first, we're going to talk about the NFL. We're going to talk about records. Um, this year, the NFL went to a 17-game season, 18 weeks with the bye, and late in the season, we're seeing guys like T.J. Watt break records, Cooper Kupp break records, Dak Prescott break records in the extra game. And I'm not sure why nobody's really emphasizing the fact that it's a 17-game season. It's not the same. It's not the same playing field. If you have more shots, have more opportunities, of course you're gonna have more records, more stats. And I saw Saturday night Dak Prescott those 5 touchdowns, and they put up a stat that he has surpassed Tony Romo as the most touchdowns in the season for a Cowboys quarterback. And I guess honestly he has, but it's in a 17-game season. Who cares? TJ Watt, the sack record with Michael Strahan, Cooper Kupp as well. All these things happen in the 17th game. And so I think we need to, I don't know what you do there. I mean, they still count, but we can't compare the era where one guy had, minimum or less attempts than the guy who broke his record. I think that's kind of goofy. And hopefully the asterisks are intact. Sticking with NFL, one more thing before I get to the playoffs. Gino Smith, backup quarterback from Seattle. He's been in the league, I think, 8 years. Probably makes about $1 million a year. Got $8 million or so. Let's say he's got 25% of it. He's got $2 million in the bank. Gets a DUI Sunday night after the game, and it's beyond me how this still happens. I'm not a moralist or Bible thumper, but a realist. You got most of my friends make less than $100,000 a year, but know how to use Uber when the time is right. And I don't understand how these athletes either don't hire a driver or a buddy or a cousin or brother to take care of them in these situations, or pay the $20 to get Uber back to the house and then $20 back tomorrow to pick up your car. Whatever the case, they're in a whole different galaxy financially, and it seems like they still make these stupid mistakes. This goes back to the Henry Ruggs felony DUI manslaughter just a few months ago. It's just dumb to me. Like, you got everything at your fingertips that most people don't, and you still don't use it. So to get a DUI with millions in the bank seems like one of the most asinine things that could possibly happen as a professional athlete. So anyway, off the soapbox, let's get on to the playoffs. This year we got 2 number 1 seeds who have byes, and then 6 teams will play for the right to move forward. We'll start with the AFC. Tennessee Titans, number 1 seed. So the bracket pretty much goes, the 2 seed Kansas City plays Pittsburgh, who's the number 7. And then we got the Bills and Pats. Bills are 3, Patriots are 6. And then Cincinnati and Raiders are 4 and 5. We thought 2 weeks ago that Ben Roethlisberger was having this swan song. He wouldn't be in the playoffs. He was playing his last home game. And since then, they've won both games. A freak accident of brain fart by the Chargers coach by not taking the tie has allowed the Raiders to get in, the Chargers to get out, and the Pittsburgh to slide into that 7th spot, which is wild. Pittsburgh faces Kansas City at Arrowhead. This is it for Ben. They've stumbled their way through, beating some backup quarterbacks and some injured quarterbacks. Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Kansas City's defense is playing a little better. I think this is a catastrophe for Mike Tomlin. It's great that they made it this far. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing record, but it ends here. Kansas City as the 2 seed. They've definitely moved forward. Bills and Patriots, it's kind of flip-flop from what it used to be, where the Patriots were the higher seed when Brady and Belichick were running the show in New England, and the Bills were just trying to get in. It's kind of flip-flop now. Josh Allen and the Bills are the 3 seed. They take on the Patriots. Weather won't be a factor here, but experience may be. Mac Jones is still, a little young, and a little suspect at times, including last week against the Dolphins. So Bills, home field, it's got to be a slight edge to them. Probably have some rough weather, like they did in that game earlier this year where the wind was disgusting, but you might add some snow into this. We'll see. It's going to be a tight game. I'll take the Bills because they're at home and because they have the more experienced quarterback. So that leaves the Raiders and the Bengals. Interesting story for the Raiders this year. For the most part, losing Gruden halfway through the season in kind of disarray, and Derek Carr has upped his game. Hunter Renfrow has become a star. Waller, Brian Edwards, Josh Jacobs. That offense has done well. You got Mad Max at the defensive end that's creating havoc for opposing quarterbacks. Raiders are playing really well, and they're playing Cincinnati, who's really hot right now. That Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase combination has been hot. But I just don't know how they'll do in their first game. The advantage they have is they're at home. I think it's going to be a close game because they can run the ball and play a little defense, and because of the home field advantage. I'll take Cincinnati. So the 3 top favorite seeds or advance. The lowest seed of that, those 3 ends up playing Tennessee at Tennessee, which will be Cincinnati. Tennessee's a team I think that could win the whole division, or they could lose against any one of these teams. They're not great. The advantage is they're at home and they get Derrick Henry back, supposedly. And if Julio Jones and A.J. Brown are healthy as well, that offense is pretty good. Tannehill's a pretty good game manager, and the defense makes things happen. So I see Tennessee beating Cincinnati. And the next game, it'll be the Bills playing Kansas City at Arrowhead. You got to take Mahomes here. The Bills had him on the ropes a couple years ago in the playoffs, and Kansas City hasn't been consistent this year at all. But I believe Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, all these playmakers, a little bit of defense puts Kansas City in there to play Tennessee for the AFC Championship. And I'm gonna throw a wrench into the playoff and what the TV networks probably want. I'm gonna take Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and Mike Vrabel get it done in Nashville, and Tennessee goes to the Super Bowl. Now, who will they play is an interesting situation as well. So Green Bay is the number 1 seed in the NFC, and I feel like they had the biggest home field advantage of anyone. If you watched the game 2 weeks ago against Minnesota, it's like 1 degree. Now, the teams that are in the playoffs are Arizona, which is warm, LA Rams, which is warm, San Francisco, which is warm, Dallas, which is warm, but also plays in a dome, Philadelphia, which is, a cold weather climate, and Tampa Bay, which is always warm. But Tom Brady does have experience in that cold, being in Foxborough for 20 years, but maybe his teammates don't. So looking at the lineup here, the Cardinals came out with a boom, was leading the NFC way out in front, like they was going to wrap it up. Some injuries and Nuke Hopkins, Kyler Murray have kind of slowed them down. And now they're a 5 seed playing at the LA Rams, who, picked up Von Miller, picked up Odell Beckham Jr. And, they've played rather well. Cooper Kupp's a hard defend, but I like this Cardinals team. I like their coach better. I like Kingsbury. Kyler Murray's hard to defend. Stafford hasn't been as sharp. And like if Buda Baker can make a big play on defense, I like the Cardinals to move ahead right here. San Francisco and Dallas. San Francisco is a Jekyll and Hyde team. Jimmy Garoppolo is 1 minute he looks really good, like on the last drive last week, but then he throws a pick in the third quarter to put them in a bind. They run the ball really well. Deebo Samuel is a transformer. He can throw the ball, he can catch the ball, and he can run the ball. He's been the MVP for that team on offense. Their defense is pretty good as well. But I think Dallas at home with a lot of confidence. Their defense plays well if healthy. Their defense will play well enough to pressure Jimmy Garoppolo, and Dallas will move ahead to the next round. The last but not least, I think Tampa Bay kills Philadelphia. Philadelphia is injured. They don't have a lot of playmakers. Jalen Hurts, you can't trust him, or Gardner Minshew, whoever's starting for them. They don't really, like I said, their playmakers are non-existent on the offensive side. If it was in Philly and it could be ugly, maybe I would lean a little bit that way, but I'm not betting against Tom Brady. He's the number 2 seed, and he's destined to win another ring. All right, so that puts the Cardinals at Green Bay, which I think will be, depending on the weather, if it's moderate, if it's in the 20s, maybe 30s, the Cardinals have a shot just because Kyler Murray is elusive. He can make things happen. Kingsbury comes up with a good game plan. And if that defense can just, hold Devontae Adams to, under 100, maybe they can make things happen. But with it being in Lambeau, you got to go with Aaron Rodgers, the 4-time MVP, gets on top. I'm going to take Green Bay to beat the Cardinals there. And then Dallas and the Buccaneers, they face off. I'm not betting against Tom Brady. I'm just not. I can't. I just don't think I can. And Dallas has been pretty inconsistent all year anyway. Dak Prescott's up and down. Zeke's up and down. And as big play as that defense is, it's just as likely as them to give up a 70-yard touchdown. So I'll take Tom Brady and Bruce Arians to the finals against Green Bay. So do both number 1 seeds make it? I think so. As much as I like Tom Brady, I think, the elements, Aaron Rodgers is fully motivated, with all this COVID stuff and all this controversy going around. He wants to win this year, especially to dethrone somebody like Tom Brady. So I'm taking the 2 number 1 seeds, Tennessee versus Green Bay. And then, at the end of that, that's a coin flip. They play 2 different styles of football. And for some reason, man, I'm leaning Tennessee Titans this year. It feels like to me that the Titans are going to get it done. I may be completely off. Hell, they may lose to Cincinnati right off the get-go. But for me, I just feel like getting Derrick Henry back. There's 2 weapons with Julio and A.J. Brown, and then a decent defense. Mike Vrabel has got a little experience in coaching in the postseason, playing in the postseason. I believe that helps. We'll see how injured Aaron Rodgers is and see if he can pull or will his team to another championship. It will be a storybook ending for him. All the off-season distractions, the COVID, and turning around and holding up that Lombardi trophy. It will be great, a great story. But for me, I'm gonna go with the Titans off the rails. Never even thought I would go that. I didn't even pick this before I did it, but somehow I see Derrick Henry willing his team to a Super Bowl championship. All right, now let's get to the topic y'all came here for. Georgia winning the championship and why that's a bad thing. Well, let's talk about the game first off. I don't think anybody thought it would be a field goal kicker's game in the first half. Nobody could seem to crack the end zone. Georgia was suspect. Stetson Barrett looked nervous. It looked like it took a little while to calm down. And even in the third quarter, when he had that sack fumble, came out of his hands and Alabama recovered at like the 15, it looked like it was the beginning of the end for Georgia. But the defense stood strong. Kirby Smart had him fired up. The injuries to Mechie and Jamison Williams definitely played a big role in the explosiveness of Alabama's offense. But the front line, the front 7, didn't allow Alabama to start a running game. And anytime there were short pass plays, the linebackers, got on the receivers before they could get the first down. And it was a great game plan. Kirby Smart got it done. Stetson Barrett made some big throws. Excuse me, Stetson Bennett. I don't know why I was going to call him Barrett, but Stetson Bennett made some big throws. Receivers made some big catches, and then they sealed the deal with a long pick six there with about a minute to go. So, kudos to Georgia. I have a handful of Georgia fans. Most are not assholes, so that's a good thing. Even though most Georgia fans are assholes, the ones I know are pretty good. And congratulations, on winning a national championship in your lifetime that you actually saw. Why it's bad? Well, the thing about Georgia is Georgia fans hold themselves in high regard, but they're, in the grand scheme of college football, they're not really looked at as maybe a top 10 program up until the last 3 or 4 years. They don't have a history of the Michigans, the Tennessees, the Notre Dames, the Florida States, Southern Cals, Texas, Oklahomas. We can go through a list of, the greats over time. They don't have a history like a Miami. They're pretty parallel to Clemson. They have a championship back in the 80s, and then they've been up and down through the 80s and 90s until recently. The last few years, Georgia has really been in the top 5 consistently, like Clemson winning 2 national championships. Now Georgia has 1. The problem with Georgia now is they have that championship. Kids watch this game. They know who Kirby Smart is. They know who these players are. And where most of the time is a coin flip, or either maybe an edge to Florida, maybe an edge to South Carolina, to North Carolina, the Florida schools, Alabama, LSU, a lot of these schools could pry away talent from Georgia. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. Case in point, South Carolina's best athlete, our best player they've had in the history outside of George Rogers is Sterling Sharp. He's from Georgia. Their best wide receiver, Kenny McKinley, from Georgia. Eric Norwood's from Georgia. Connor Shaw, the best quarterback in the last decade, also from Georgia. So, they were able to get those guys and make their team better. Clemson is a perfect example. 2 national championships, one with Deshaun Watson from Georgia, one with Trevor Lawrence from Georgia. So, schools were able to pick apart stars from Georgia because people weren't sure they wanted to go for an 8 or 9 win team. We're only 5 years removed from when Georgia's playing in the Liberty Bowl. And a couple of years before that, they played in the Belt Bowl. So Georgia has been a potential, winner. But in the SEC East, it was always Florida. And then Tennessee was really good. Kentucky's given teams trouble. South Carolina has given Georgia trouble. But now that they're, got over that bubble and they have that trophy to show these recruits, I think it turns everything around. They don't have any competition in the state of Georgia. Florida, Florida State, and Miami are all in flux. South Carolina's on the way up, but they're still way behind where Georgia is right now. And then Clemson's got all this disarray. So everybody who used to pick apart players from Georgia won't be able to do so because of that national championship. I think it's terrible for everybody, in the southern border down here because of that. Nick Saban winning, it wouldn't have changed anything. He's going to cherry pick his 15 to 20 kids. He's going to do what he does, and you just got to adjust accordingly. So, even if Saban would have won last night, it doesn't change anything. There's not really a kid that needed to see Alabama win to pick Alabama. But I believe some of these marginal kids who have the 3 hats on the table, and Clemson and Georgia and Florida, I think Georgia's going to get the nod more now, which is bad for everybody else. Like I said, Florida's in a rebuilding stage. Tennessee is moving up, and South Carolina's moving up. But there's a big gap right there. And Georgia should run the East for at least 3 or 4 seasons. And, Clemson, like I said, Clemson's kind of on that Georgia border. They get a lot of talent from Georgia. If you don't get a Trevor Lawrence, if you don't get a Deshaun Watson, you never know what happens 5 years later. And, this could be bad for most of those schools. I don't think it bothers Alabama at all. I think they get what they get. And not only that, they develop who they have. And we see them they're plugging coaches, much less players, plug in new coaches, plug in new players, and Alabama's in there at the end of the year. So, I know everybody last night wanted to see Alabama go down. They're tired of seeing Nick Saban and Alabama hold that trophy. But for your football team, unless they're Alabama, it wasn't good, or unless you're a Georgia fan. So anyway, we'll see how Kirby parlays this. I believe he won't have a walk-on quarterback under center much longer. He'll get back to where he had the Justin Fields or the Jake Fromms. He'll get those power running backs. He'll get those elusive wide receivers, which he's got a couple who are called tight ends now. And then, you look at like Jordan Davis and that defensive line, he'll just keep reloading those guys. It's going to be tough in the SEC East. I figure Georgia will probably win 1 or 2 more championships in the next 5 years. And it's terrible because if you see that face right there, that's a face that's the guy you just want to knock out. But, he learned from the best. He did his internship under Nick Saban, learned what it was to build a program and get them to the next level. And now he's here, and you can't take that away from him. So congratulations to Georgia. I guess South Carolina can do all they can to be the second in the SEC East now. And Clemson got them a quarterback from Texas. That's a good move because I think Kirby Smart's going to put the no trespassing sign on that Georgia border. And he's going to keep most of his guys there. So anyway, appreciate you listening. We got a podcast that we do on Sundays as well, me and Curtis. You can find it on Spotify, the Rhino and Curtis Show. You can find it on Apple Podcast. It's hosted on Anchor. You can listen there as well. And then, of course, on YouTube, we do the video as well. So on Sundays, around 10 o'clock, we do the podcast. It's usually up by 11 or so. Appreciate all you watching, and feel free to comment, share, whatever. If you disagree, agree, or have some kind of topics you want to talk about, just throw them in the comments. So y'all be good. Stay tuned, and we'll see you guys Sunday.